Hey guys, this is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. In this video I'm going to go over another high stakes hand, 200k pot, pretty exciting, hope you guys like it. 500, 1k, 2k, so a straddle, anti-game, pretty big game. These guys are both sitting at close to 100k, which means basically 100 big blinds or 50 straddles. So Marcus min raises, Badzikowski 3-bets him from the small blind, and Marcus calls from middle position, or UTG in a straddle game. We see a flop, deuce 3-5, rainbow. Badzikowski goes all in for what's effectively, I think, a bit more than 2.5x the pot. Marcus times a bit and decides to call, and they turn up their hands. Badzikowski has pocket jacks, and Marcus has pocket sevens. Run it twice, Badzikowski wins both and ships a 200k pot. What we're going to examine in this video is, are these guys GTO wizards or not? Because when you don't have access to the tools to analyze these situations, it's very common to see a play like shoving 2.5x the pot and then be like, oh, well, that's very surprising. I didn't expect that to happen, but I guess it must be right if these guys are doing it. Intuitively, there's something special about any board where an ace makes a gut shot, because 3-betting ranges are very ace-king, ace-queen heavy. A hand like ace-king on a deuce 3-5 board is going to have roughly 40% equity against any pocket pair. And this creates a temptation to just shove something like ace-king, where if the other guy calls you with 7s or 8s or 9s, you still have 40%. And if you would construct a shoving range with ace-king and some pairs, you'd probably force the other guy to actually have to fold a hand like 7s, where 7s is either almost flipping with your ace-king, ace-queen, or it's drawing dead. So that would be kind of for me, the dynamic of this board, where when you shove, it really feels like you're shoving with ace-king because it's a scary move, you're trying to end the hand. Ace-king feels like it has the highest incentive to do that. On the other hand, calling in position with a pocket pair is pretty risky stuff where you're never going to be very far ahead. So we'll go to the analysis. I recreated the situation, but the ranges are not going to be exactly the same, and this is important to mention. They're just never going to be exactly the same. What we can see with the stacks being the same is that a shove is a play that never ever happens. And in fact, when you compare shoving to, for example, betting small, every single hand prefers to bet small over shove. There is no hand where shove is a plus EV play compared to betting small. There are a few where it's close. Jacks is one of the closer ones, but shoving is not a GTO play with any hand. It's just not something that a solver would do in GTO. So, first of all, Badzikowski's play, not GTO. Once he shoves, you guys can see the response of the in-position player, where suddenly looking at this we realize that 7s is actually the worst pair he can possibly have. Any lower pair is going to have some form of extra equity, and any higher pair is just going to be higher. And here calling with 7s is just a straight up EV mistake, as would be calling with 8s, and you need a certain threshold of pair to make this call, or of course to have extra equity where something like 4s or 6s is absolutely amazing due to the extra straight outs, which also counterfeit ace-king straight out, so they're twice as good. If you have 6s and the river is a 4, 4 used to be an out for ace-king and now it isn't anymore, so it's extra good. As we said, despite both players being very high level, this hand is not played GTO at all by any means. So what I try to do at this stage is pause and say, okay, GTO has its place, but let's try to get into these players' heads, what was going on, and could any of their plays be good in some situation. So let's try and take a look, and we'll do a fairly quick analysis of what the dynamics of the spot are from a leveling perspective. Step 1 is, obviously, if the out of position player were to shove only ace-king, this is kind of the first lock we can make. We can say, you know what, the other guy has a read that the shove is just ace-king, and he knows, right, this is the hand that makes sense to shove. So were we to shove ace-king, how would calling with 7s be? And the answer is it would be brilliant, amazing, great. Obviously call 7s, you're a big favorite against ace-king. second stage of the analysis would be, what if you're Badzikowski and you think that Michael is going to call every pocket pair for some reason? And we can go back and just compare EVs between shoving and betting small. And what we see is that if you know or suspect heavily that your opponent is actually calling every pocket pair, which is definitely a thing against some players or with some dynamics, then whenever you have nines plus, highest EV plays to shove by a few big blinds. Not a huge amount, but it's not a small amount. So as far as a leveling war, even though neither calling nor shoving are GTO, you could make a case for both with a little bit of information about your opponent. As I said in the beginning, I'm not completely sure what the pre-flop ranges are for both players. So we can go ahead and make a different assumption. And this assumption would be that the calling range, because these guys are only 50 deep, we're going to make it a bit tighter. So remove some of the top end hands. These should be out. These should be out. This should be lessened. So with a few adjustments to the ranges, what we can see is that out of position suddenly does start having the open shoving range, right? We made his range strong enough. The c-bet frequency gets a lot higher, close to 100%. And now hands start shoving, and we can see which type of hands start shoving and see if this strategy looks like what we expected it to. And we see 8s, 9s, 10s, and jacks, and some ace highs. And when this happens with the wider ranges, what you'll see is that suddenly in position is break-even calling with 7s and 8s because his range just is wider. You can see how sensitive the GTO sim is to assumptions, where when I was taking a small blind versus MP 100 deep 3-betting range, I got that you should never shove and you should never call 7s, and both players sucked. But once I took the calling range, I just removed some of the top end and removed some of the speculative hands that hit the board a bit harder. Suddenly shoving is great, and now that the range is weaker, calling 7s is fine. This brings up a question. Let's say you've studied GTO. Obviously you don't know by heart every range for every spot. And you guys can see how changing the stack sizes or changing the ante structure, adding a straddle, all these things can change ranges in enough of a way where the strategies and the thresholds just end up changing. So what did we see in this video? At the beginning, it seemed like both players messed up. And then I fiddled with the ranges a bit, made one of the ranges weaker, and suddenly both players' plays seem fine. What I would say about this situation is that it goes to show the limits of solvers, where you have to be really, really pinpoint accurate with ranges, and strategies can encounter huge shifts. Same situation, same stack size, just change the ranges a little bit and everything changes. What you guys need to understand is how does this spot work and how does it get affected as ranges get stronger or weaker, tighter or looser, as stack sizes change, etc. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe to the video, and I'll see you next time.